Hello everyone, and welcome to the second of 5 workshops in a series titled Ignite Passion, Deliver Results, curated to discuss 5 key topics over the next 4 weeks. So do register, share the info, and follow us on social media. Couple of house rules before we kick off. To be on mute, to keep the videos on where possible. We will have a 45-minute discussion followed by a 15-minute Q&A at the end. The session is being recorded and we will have this up on our YouTube channel. So do follow, do share, do like, and keep yourself subscribed. So last week, we discussed showing up at work and doing so with the right attitude to add value to you, your role, and to the organization. In continuation with that, this week, we want to touch on what are you waiting for? Well, my name is Anton Thayalan. I'm the Chief Evangelist for Luminary Learning Solutions, the training arm of High Five Consultancy. Joining me this afternoon is Vidusha Nathavitharana, the founder and Destiney architect of High Five Consultancy. So, just for those, to give you an idea, Vidusha Nathavitharana is a seasoned trainer and a consultant with over 15 years of hands-on experience, having led HR and HRD initiatives that have won accolades globally. Vidusha has the ability to simplify the complex without diluting it, and he has run assignments in over 12 countries globally. Joining him is Jennifer Randive, a face well known within Dubai and the Middle East. Is the founder of Focus Direct Management Consultants. Jennifer has 30 years of working experience in different industries, from retail, sales, exhibitions, recruitment, headhunting, to change management. Today, she facilitates people into different approaches to address things differently. She is the maverick CEO, the coach, the mentor, the counselor, and the consultant, which she uses interchangeably as required. So let's dive right in. So if you happen to know Jennifer and Vidusha like I do, beyond their professional descriptions, this is how I would see the two of them. So Jennifer is the eternal optimist, and this is her strength, to take the challenges by the horn and come out triumphantly. She's certainly the maverick who would dive right into the role with punches and ready to learn on the go. So that's Jennifer. Well, no two fingers are alike. So in contrast, we've got Vidusha. Now, Vidusha, I've known him for a long time, and he's slightly different in his approach and in his personality. So he is the characteristic thinker, the planner. He too will seize the opportunity, but would first assess plans, put his framework before throwing himself fully and wholeheartedly. So taking these two individuals and their characteristics and the way they look at things and the way they think and the way they action into consideration, this week, we're kind of changing the way we do things. So for those of you who've joined us today, you can enjoy a full spectrum view to maximize your takeaway. So we have set up Jennifer and Vidusha in what I'd like to call a juxtaposition, where you're exposed to different perspectives and set up, kind of like a trail mix for the mind. So looking at this topic in 2 ways. In one, as they say, la vie en rose, or positive lens, seizing the opportunities unquestioningly, like what Sir Richard Branson said. If you are given an opportunity, an amazing opportunity, and you're not sure about whether you can do it or not, say yes, take it, and then learn how to do it along the way. The other way of looking at it is with a cautionary lens. It's kind of like if you're testing the waters to see how deep it is, you wouldn't want to dive in with both your feet. You would want to just use one. And that's kind of like the Vidusha thinking. So there's nothing wrong with either view, to be honest, but one could be more appealing than the other depending on your personality. So whether you're a person who errs on the side of caution or test the waters first, or if you're the person who is all in and loves to make a splash, there is a takeaway for each and every one of you this afternoon. So let's look at the 5 areas that we want to cover today, and the first of which on overcoming self-limiting beliefs. To put it simply, self-limiting beliefs are assumptions and perceptions that you have about yourself and about the world and the way in which the world works, right? So these assumptions are self-limiting because in some way, they're holding you back from doing what you are capable of. Perhaps these assumptions are your reality that come from your perception and life experiences. So on that note, my question to you, Jennifer, and then let me start with you, please. How has your life experiences, or has your life experiences limited you, or has it spurred you on? And is this a matter of attitude?
Brilliant question. You really are a brilliant curator, Anton. To answer your question, experiences for me have been quite a catalyzing effect. I mean, I have experienced ups and downs and being status quo as well. But one of the things that I actually notice most of the time is the attitude which you talked about. The attitude is truly something that can shift and change and how you perceive things. Like for me, I used to be trodden and really worried and concerned about how I would be able to approach anything. At the beginning, when you start off, you make a whole lot of mistakes. But I think as time has gone, those very mistakes that I made were the mistakes that took me to a totally different level of actually operating and being able to seize the moment and actually make the change. But essentially, to talk about the attitude, it's one of resilience, I assume, resilient to really getting to know what you would like to achieve, and clarity is very important there, and how it is that you can impact the world. That is how I look at it. It's not about what other people expect of me. It has to be me first, about me, because if I'm not really showing up the way I can actually make any difference, then I'm going to be waiting for other people to approve of me before I even take a step to do anything in my life. That's what's been my personal experience.
Sure. Vidusha, while I throw that at you, I want to just quickly ask, have you been molded by your experiences? And just on that note also, are your views indeed shaded?
No, I think the broad honest answer to that is I think everyone's molded by their own experiences. But here's the trick, and I think Jennifer was absolutely right in that whenever you have a situation, you do need to internalize that. And how you internalize it is pretty much based on who you are innately and who you consciously look at being on a daily basis. So let me explain that, right? I mean, I was listening to the introductions and I thought I'll record it. Thank God it is getting recorded because I do want to show it to my mother because she will completely disagree with you. Chances are she's going to turn around and say, no, that doesn't sound like my son. He's completely blasé. He has absolutely no perception of risk. And he's the kind of idiot who will, go splash about and then figure out, oh my God, it's too deep. Now what do you do? But I think a lot of it depends on what you do also. So let me break up that question because I think it's a pretty important starting point for what we are about to discuss, right? So I think here are 2 aspects to this. The first is how important something is for you. I think the more important it is, by virtue of who we are, we react in 2 very different ways. Some people react to something that is dead important for them by taking a step back and being somewhat cautious because it is important. And if it goes wrong, there's a lot at stake. The others, on the other hand, if it is really important for them, they go all hands on deck. They don't hold anything back. For better or for worse, they just dive right in, right? So that's the first one. And that's very important. How important is it for you? The second thing is, what are the repercussions and ramifications should it fail? Now, this is where I think a lot depends on where you come from as much as who you are. Some of us have safety nets. It can be a financial safety net. It could be our family who's absolutely backing us all the way. It could be friends. It could be just, an organization sometimes who tells you, if you are the CEO of an organization, you know what, we want this done, just go all out. So if you have that safety net, then the ability for you to kind of rise to the occasion is much higher. However, if you don't have that safety net, then you do tend to err on caution, not probably because you want to, but sometimes because you have to. So I think circumstance plays a huge role in that as well. But let me piggyback on what Jennifer said, right throughout whatever I'm saying. Please do bear in mind that ultimately you do have to start where Jennifer starts out, which is, what do I want out of this? And how do I want to show up? And lots of people actually forget that. Everything else comes after that. Whichever way you play, it has to start from, what do I want out of this? And 9 times out of 10, because we miss that, and because we are so self-conscious of how we are perceived by others, we allow that to cloud ourselves. And that becomes a problem. So I think that's where I would actually contextualize your question.
Right. Thank you, V, for that. Interesting twist and interesting perspectives. And then thank you, Jennifer, for that detailed answer as well. On that note, and if you are to go back and start where Jennifer was pointing to, clearly requires confidence, right? Being confident means that you knowing that you can handle the emotional outcome of whatever you'll face. And that takes a certain level of confidence, right? To begin by acknowledging that every emotion, including the difficult ones, rather than just avoiding them, you acknowledge them. To be able to speak up for yourself, to limit the self-criticism, and other strategies that can help you build that emotional strength and confidence. But that's the general way of looking at things. Jennifer, from your perspective, and I know you've had a brilliant, colorful life, and I'm sure we'll hear parts of it during this conversation. What builds your amazing confidence? And that's something that's always fascinated me. You've never given up and you've just gone head on. What builds that amazing confidence that you have? And also, how have you put yourself out there, one after the other, and kept learning from it?
Wow, that's a really long and huge question, but I'm going to attempt by breaking it up. So the first one is about how do I usually carry on in the face of anything that's showing up? And people call it adversity. I look at it as any challenge being the next level for my learning and growing. So I could be looking at wanting to do something totally different. Like, for example, I've been in recruitment for 25 years, all of you know that. And then in 2013, I shifted gear. Now, I could shift gear without any fear, or I could let the fear consume me and become totally complacent. Okay? Now, we work in a country where we need to generate revenue. In a business, you got to generate revenue. You can't just say, okay, one day, okay, I'm going to give this up and take off and do something else. But the funny thing is that in my personal experience is when you've actually come to a level of really getting to know what it is that you've been working with and for a good 25 years of your life, you see yourself actually showing up and becoming a little blasé or a little too comfortable. And I think that's the time when I have always received that nudge that I keep talking about, it's time to budge. Okay. And little things will start showing up. Things in my life started showing up much before I actually took the plunge. And I think if we were to become, and the way I operate today is becoming aware of that. So yes, in the beginning, I was not, so I was really blown off. I mean, one disaster after the other disaster, and then really getting the courage to lift myself up and say, okay, fine, I'm not going to take this anymore. But I think that's how we all start. When I was kicked off the track, I had to come back because I had my daughter at that time. She was my priority. Then I had my mother, who became my priority. Then I had the people who became a priority. So I was doing it first for other people, so that I would actually assist them and facilitate them to become great and take care of things. Till after learning all these things, I actually recognized that I was in charge of myself. I could not do this anymore trying to please everyone. It was getting tiring. But for the change that you're talking about, the resilience that I had to have was this. Do I really want to do this? Is this really going to be a contribution to me now and for the next 5 years? And it is about me coming into and fine-tuning those questions that I ask to truly become aware. Because things, if you learn to get out of your own way, because we have been entrained with how things have to be. Most of the time, we're told this is the right way, this is the wrong way, this is the perfect way, there's no way. Now, when you've already got those parameters fixed in your mind, there's nothing new that can ever show up, quite honestly. I mean, I tried for around about 10 years of my life to try and figure this thing out. I think it's the 10 years of actually trying to figure it out that actually I got to find out that I was the only one who had to be aware and to acknowledge what was going on without judging myself. Because things that go on in your life and the things that you hold yourself accountable, responsible for, sometimes we let that interface and we start making ourselves wrong and start judging ourselves. We're not here to judge ourselves. We've got to look at situations and we've got to say, is this situation working for me or not? And if it's not, what am I going to do about it? And that's where I think, Vidusha, you come in so brilliantly to show us the how and what it is that we can do. But from my perspective, it is about really getting to know where you're stuck. Because if you're not willing to know where you're stuck, you can never ever look at anything else new showing up. And you do not have to maintain your point of view, because sometimes your point of view really doesn't allow you to go anywhere because it's fixed. It's absolutely fixed and it's permanent. So that's why I talk about paradigm busting. My job is to bust paradigms that have imprisoned us from taking inspired action forward.
Thank you for that. Vidusha, just before you answer that, I want to I know you've had harrowing experiences in your life as well. Have you ever put yourself out there confidently to find it being shattered, right? And how did you, and I'm sure you have at some point, and how did you find yourself, or how did you collect yourself to get out of that, as you say, or as we say, upward and onwards? How did you manage to do that?
Well, I'll just go back to what Jennifer said for a moment there. I think the trick is this. I don't think any one of us are permanently confident. I think it's important to acknowledge that. I think
absolutely
all human beings, no matter how confident you might outwardly seem, have many, many occasions when you really do question yourself, ask yourself whether you can do it. Doubt seeps in. So I don't think there's a single person out there, unless you're actually quite mad, who is permanently confident all the time. I don't think a normal, as we would call a normal person, can be confident all the time. But here's the trick. I think I say this to my daughter quite a lot. I tell her that there is no logic to confidence. Confidence is illogical if you really look at it that way. It's completely logical, right? Because when you look at anything that you really want to do, which you haven't done before, and you have undertaken for yourself, saying, I can do this, there's no logic behind that.
No.
There's only faith, and there is hope. And with it, and with it comes confidence, right? Now, confidence is a loaded thing. And confidence and overconfidence also needs to be differentiated. Now, it's one thing to have confidence. It's another thing to be completely blasé about something and be completely cockeyed about it also. And lots of people are that. They just overstretch themselves, overestimate themselves, and get so cockily confident that you're doomed to fail before you even start, because you do not go through the motions of truly understanding the problem and really thinking it through. Now, there are things that you can take on the fly. I mean, you want to take a trip. God's sake, don't sit there and plan it, of course, Just pack your bags and go someplace and just have fun whilst you're at it. But if you're trying to teach your son mathematics and you failed your mathematics in school, confidence ain't going to cut it. You got to either got to go and do some math yourself, or
or get someone else to teach him.
Yes, absolutely. Find something that you can teach it, right? So whenever you talk about confidence, I often get very nervous, simply because sometimes I think we portray ourselves into being those absolute risk-taking, come what may. I don't think that's true. I think, yes, we are confident, but we do think it through. We do plan it through. We do have that judgment call to say, this is something I can do and I have a skill set for. I mean, Jennifer is not going to do coaching simply because she felt like it and she felt confident she could do it. She will qualify herself in it. She doesn't become a Reiki master by simply saying, you know what, I read about Reiki, so let me do this. I'm confident I can do that, I mean, we have cracked doctors that way, right? Who got confident all of a sudden and decided that, they can cure cancer and so on and so forth. I mean, that's another end of the confidence spectrum. But true confidence, I think, comes out of three core ingredients. The first is knowing what the hell you're talking about. I think that gives a hell of a lot of confidence. If you truly know what you're about to do, I think that gives a hell of a lot of confidence. The second is experience. If you've been there, done that, and messed it up, I think you get a lot of confidence because you know what can go wrong.
Hell yes.
And
Totally.
whenever you're trying to do something, you can almost picture it in your mind, right? This is gonna.
Oh my God, I did that, yeah.
And that helps. And the third aspect of confidence is actually having what I call a fan base, or a group of people who will spur you on and cheer you on and be with you even if you screw up. That gives you a hell of a lot of confidence because you don't fail alone then. And I think those three things, if you have with you, I think anyone can be confident. And I think most people would be. But take one of those three away, I think
you falter.
You're wise not to be confident then.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting what you say, because no one is born confident. I mean, it is about your experiences that truly make you confident. As for me, God knows that I have fallen flat in my face so many times, but it was something that taught me that the way I was approaching it was not okay. But the stuff that I really wanted to bring about was actually waiting to come through me. You see, so for example, I wanted to do online stuff. Okay, I wanted to be online. Now, I'm not an online person, neither am I a techie person. Okay, but I had a message that was inside of me that wanted to come through me, but I didn't know how to do it. So now either I can dwell, oh my God, I don't know how to do it, which I did for 2 years. Oh my God, I don't know how to do it. Or I can find somebody who's way better than me to actually help me to do it. You know what I'm saying? So it's a very fine line there. We've really got to know, is this truly what I want to be? Now we can be doing some, because if we didn't take any risks, quite honestly, we would be still, than the Stone Ages, for God's sake. Right?
Absolutely.
Agree.
And just to quickly add to that, Anton, I think the critical aspect is this. I think when something happens, and Jennifer pointed out really two very, very important things. The first is you have to introspect. I really do think that's important. And ask yourself, if you failed, why did you fail, right? And confidence comes out of knowing that you can fail and still move forward. I think that's what confidence is, right? The ability to fail, but still move forward. It's not about not failing. I think people misunderstand that.
Yes.
It's not about success. It's about being able to fail and still move forward indefinitely until you reach success. So the second is, there is no point if you introspect and then palm off the blame to someone else as to why you failed. That doesn't make you confident. That just makes you irresponsible.
Totally.
Right? So you need to find out where you failed, why you failed, and what it is that you need to do differently in order for you to succeed.
Totally.
The moment your brain starts getting that and gets wired on that, I think confidence comes naturally.
I think you've nailed that particular one, but I like the fact about where the irresponsibility comes in. And interesting you mentioned that, Vidusha, because just moving on from our discussion and just to add a little bit more value to this particular topic is, want to cover the area where we are looking at positive action and positive attitude, right? Hopefully, I know you mentioned responsibility, but hopefully you wouldn't get into a car and say, do you know what? I don't think I'm going to wear my seatbelts today. I'm just going to think positively about arriving at my destination safely. The biggest challenge that I find in these instances are that people tend to believe that a positive or thinking positively is the single most driving force that leads to positive change. So, for example, a business owner sitting back and saying, I'm just going to sit back and think about, I don't know, my revenue going up for the second half of the year, and I'm going to think very positively about it. Or a sales manager or a sales executive sitting and thinking, I've just got to keep telling myself, it's going to get better and I will get there. Now, you could think positively all you want, but if you fall short of combining that positive thinking to positive action, definitely you're not going to see any positive results. So Jennifer, on that note, can I ask you to kind of distinguish positive attitude and positive action and sort of connect us through your stories, because I know you've got quite a few there, where both of these, the positive thinking and positive action, have kind of come into play in your life?
Okay. Good question there. Now, this word positive and negative for me is quite an interesting concept, because I don't look at anything positive or as a negative, because it's our perception, quite honestly, to any situation that creates the negativity or the positivity, so to speak. So if I was at this particular moment, if I was to look at any situation, I would look at the situation as it is without putting the framework of, oh, this is positive or this is negative, because that's the first place that we actually get stuck. And there's so much material out there that if you think positive, then everything's going to be okay. And it's quite a lot of hogwash. I'm sorry. I went through that myself. Seriously. I went through The Secret. I became a secret person. I actually did. And I thought to myself, my God, if I could actually listen to The Secret and everyone's freaking stories of them becoming like overnight millionaires, what the hell am I doing? I mean, I need to actually go and actually do this. So I went full 9 yards into actually getting into that. I've done that too, okay? So it was the silver method and the different life success. So I've actually done all of that to really look at how is this working. And I got to one thing, and that was my own experience, was I could sit all day, as you said rightfully, Anton. For one full year, I just sat and meditated. That was it. Morning, noon, and night. So it got me a bit of peace, but after that, as soon as I come out of meditation, it's like, oh my God, now what, now what, now what, right? So there was no action. It was shutting yourself down, imagining something new would show up, but then not knowing where to go with it and what to do. Now, I have been through that, not once, not twice, but a couple of times, okay? And it took me time, to actually get it that I was thinking in a certain way, that thinking was stopping me, because most of the time when we are thinking, we are not only thinking what we think is okay and good, but we're also picking up on what other people's expectations of us is. So does my boss want me to do it this way? Does my wife want me to do it this way? Is my husband okay with this? There's so many other people's interesting points of views that are coming into you, and you mistake that as your point of view. And then you frame everything about how you're going to show up and what you're going to do based on that. So ideally speaking, I had to really get out of my own way, because I was buying into everything everyone else was saying all the time. The result is I didn't know who I was and what I wanted all the time. For a long time, I was like a ship without a rudder. I had no clue. And it's only when you can be in that zone, as Vidusha says, then only you can see it in other people and how they're operating and how it is you can help to assist them to get out of their own way. I was in my way. And how was I in my way? By the way I was thinking of, this is the right way, the only way, the perfect way, no other way, positive way, negative way. No, it was I had to stop, really stop. And I think that our new SLA should be stop, listen, and ask questions. That's the new SLA. Our service level agreements with ourselves should be that. Stop, listen, and ask questions, which I did. And when I did that, I actually started seeing that most of the time I was steering myself in what other people demanded, expected, and I was lost. So to answer your question, it has been a long time that I had dabbled in this, and it was not comfortable at all. It was painful. Did I lose money? Yes. Did I try and find myself? Yes. Did I go everywhere else looking for myself? Yes. And I had to actually come to myself and actually know that if I was looking for another way, I was the way. But I had to actually ask those questions. I had to find out, is this working for me? Is this going to work for me? If I was to choose this, is this going to work for somebody else? And actually create in my mind a process, because I would always look at the stuff as the end result and always work backward to see where it is that I can implement starting now. I would always look at the end result, and this is what I would desire, and that would inspire me to come backward to see, is it going to work for me and for everyone else around me? So I hope that answers your question.
You did. Interesting way that you look at it. Vidusha, before you answer, I'm just going to throw something at you as well, and then please, I want your thoughts on the same. Does positive attitude compensate for positive action? I know earlier on you talked about overconfidence, right? Is that the same as having a positive attitude?
Well, I'm gonna refer to what Jennifer said, right? I think whether it was a positive attitude or a negative attitude is only when you retrospect and look back. Okay. And 9 times out of 10, I think all these great books are written in retrospect, not whilst it's happening. And if you started chronicling somebody's life, as and when it unfolds, you will not be able to discern whether that was positive action or negative action. All you know, it was
Totally.
action.
Totally.
Right? So let me start there, because I think if you don't understand that, and if you can't acknowledge that, then you've lost the plot, because ultimately you're judged by the results. I'm not a, whatever results you want to put in there, right? And I'm not here to kind of say that, being a millionaire is everything, or being happy is everything, or being happily married is everything, or having great kids is everything, or anything of the sort. But whatever you have deemed important for yourself, if you turn around and say 1, 2, 3 is important for me, if you achieve that, then you're a success. Whether other people think you're a success or not is a different question. But whether we want to accept it or not, the bottom line is the books are written based on what other people felt were successes, not based on what you felt was a success. So when that is being written, you look at positivity from the perspective of an end state, and you going towards that direction. So let me break that up for you, right? Is that positivity? I think the honest answer is we don't know whether it's positive or negative when we start out. All we know is there's a direction we want to go to, and there is a certain amount of action that needs to be taken, and we need to wake up every morning and do something about it. And as long as we do that willingly, unwillingly, grudgingly, happily, unhappily, bottom line is you will arrive at a destination. Now, once you arrive at that destination, maybe you're a broken person if you hated it, right? Which happens to a lot of people. And if you did that willingly and happily, then chances are you have a lot more fire in your belly to do more. Otherwise, you'll be far too exhausted by the time you've climbed the mountain to actually experience it for yourself. But here, just let me throw in a story, right? So my ambition in life, when I was about 13 years old, was to play in the NBA. I wanted it, and I think I was drummed in this whole positive attitude myself. So I went to practices with positive energy. I loved the game, so there was no problem getting me into practice. In fact, I was in practice far more than in my classroom. So all my effort was expended towards it. Now, there was a caveat to that. The issue was that I was no good at it. Now, no amount of positive action or positive attitude ever got me to jump any higher, because my muscles wouldn't work that way, right? So was I better than what I was yesterday? Hell yes. Was I good enough to play a game? Absolutely not. Yes, absolutely. So the only time that the coach ever put me, I was so damn excited that I actually went and put a basket on the other side and actually got the team to score. That the only point that they ever scored in that damn game was thanks to me. And after that, my coach just stopped me from playing.
He was being kind to you, was he?
I know, he was extremely kind. And truth be told, he actually came and sat me down and told me, look, Vidusha, I need to break this out to you. You're just not going to play basketball at that level. So for God's sake, find something that you're good at, because you're just bloody wasting your time here. And I got offended by this, because I told myself, hey, you know what, if I believe in this, I really can do this, And for another year, I went for practice. And then my coach actually did something, which was at a very crucial game, he got me to play. We were very evenly poised. It was a semi-final match. And he got me to play just before halftime. And my inadequacy showed up big time. And the team started failing because of me. And as much as I was wanting to play, I did realize that the team was suffering because of me. And I went up, I kind of called out the coach and I said, look, you need to take me out because I clearly can't play at this level. And I sat at the bench and then decided I'm not going to do this anymore and I'm glad my coach did that to me. And I think he did it on purpose, just so that I realized that I was just not good at that level. Now, I still play basketball for the fun of it. But I don't ever kid myself into thinking I can play at the NBA, And I think that also is something that you need to weigh in. So positive attitude, positive action is all well and great. you really do need to ask yourself whether you have the skill set to do it too. Devoid of that, I think you will be successful in your own right at a mediocrity level. You will always improve yourself. And if that's enough for you, fantastic. That's okay. But if you really want to make a success in the global arena on anything, you really need to pick and choose your spots and find out what you're really good at. And all of us have things that we're really good at. And sometimes we don't allow that to show because we have now put it inside our head. This is what I want to be before we even explore what we're good at. So many years later, someone just called me up out of the blues and told me to take part in debating. And I just took to it like duck to water. And I put in the same amount of vigor and enthusiasm and the kind of concentration I would play basketball with. And get this, back then, debating was never considered something that you play as a sport. You did it for fun. You just love speaking and you like rebutting, and so you kind of went with the flow. But I brought the same level of kind of discipline, and we didn't even have a master for it, mind you. That's how insignificant debating was. But we brought the same level, me and one of my colleagues, we actually brought in the same level of discipline that they played basketball with. We had practices every day. And just like we do layups, we actually picked topics and talked about off the bat 10 things you know about the topic. So we read up, researched every single day. And we did it as seriously as we would play basketball. And we started winning competitions. And all of a sudden, you got highlighted for that. Now, until then, nobody actually won a tournament in debating and considered it a big deal. But when you start winning one competition, and the second, and the third, and the fourth, and the fifth, and the sixth, and then all of a sudden, every single one in a row, then all of a sudden it becomes a big deal. Now, the point I want to make is that positive attitude is a starting point. You have to have the right mental aptitude and the attitude. Positive action is also the second, and it's dead important because you really have to kind of put in the time, put in the effort.
Right.
But I think you need to do it with direction set based on your skill set also. Otherwise, you always achieve substandard results and you get utterly frustrated because of it. So if you are really putting it everything you have and you're still not getting a result, that's when you need to do what Jennifer said you should do, which is stop, listen to yourself, and ask those damn hard questions.
Those questions are so hard to ask, and you will feel totally dejected. But if you do not ask them, you're going to be falling into all kinds of confusion that actually have the illusion around it, like, oh, I am this, when you truly are not designed for it. Because each one of us is unique. And Absolutely. To try and be like somebody else doesn't quite cut it. We're not here to be like somebody else. The whole concept over here is to excel at who you are. And the one thing that I want to just add to that before Anton, you come to the next question is this. Most of the time, all of us have got this innate ability for something or the other. For example, debating is one of yours. Funnily enough, you mentioned that. I was the first one to do debating in school when I was in the 5th grade. I was only 10 years old. I had no clue what debating was. And in the 7th grade, I was the captain of the basketball team of my own school. So how does it get cooler than that? However, having said that, we have these innate abilities within us. And we do not even consider them to be abilities. We think because we can do it very simply, that everyone else can do it and it's no big deal. That is what we've got to actually look at. We've got to look at what truly, number one, turns us on to become vibrant, enthused, and excited about that. Because if you're trying to be like someone else, then we are never ever going to look at what it is that we are capable of, ever.
Absolutely.
Because we're too busy trying to focus on, if he can do it, then I can also do it. No, first find out, do you really enjoy to do it or not? That's number one. Number two, if you are looking at something that comes naturally to you. Now, talking to people comes naturally to me. And I think that most of the time, people have to learn how to become a proper speaker. And for me, it is like, why would you learn to do that? Don't you already do that? But no, they don't. Okay. And if that comes naturally to you, so my question to everyone who's going to be listening to this, please spend some time to really get to know what truly inspires you to be you, what comes naturally to you, because it does not come naturally to other people. And that's where you can actually make a killing in anything that you be and do differently.
Absolutely. And let me just quickly add to that, right? Sometimes what you're good at seems insignificant. I mean, I used to always, and you're dead right, Jennifer, I used to never look at speaking as a skill because everyone spoke, right? There was not a single kid in class that didn't speak, right? I mean, everyone spoke. So what's so special about it? But I am making a living out of speaking, right? It's
Totally.
the most fundamentally bloody simple thing to do compared to playing basketball or astrophysics or Mohammed, what you're doing, which is laying fiber optic cables. It's the most simplest thing to do, but it's my vocation and I love it.
Exactly.
And if somebody actually told me, look, Vidusha, when I was about 16 or 15 years old, you have a skill, and that's speaking, I would have boo-booed him and said, look, that doesn't
What
even
the hell are you talking
fall
about?
into the categorization of a skill. Right?
Yeah, because everyone
That's to
speaks.
speak innately.
Exactly.
That's right.
But then,
So I think that's important.
To look at it though, and I'm going to add to make your skill that sometimes we think is no big deal because everyone can speak. It's like, what information are you bringing through? What research did you do for it to come through? What value addition is it bringing to the floor? What contribution can it create for people who are listening for them to explore? So what you are actually is a mind opener.
Absolutely.
That's what your skill is. So that's what I help people to identify. Being in recruitment, that's what it is that I always did. And as a coach and a mentor now, is most people are lost as to what it is that they can be and do differently. And I call it actually tapping into your unique personal strategy. What is that for you? That's where the questioning comes through. Please, Anton. Thank you so much.
Again, valuable points. And it's nice to note that, yes, you do need to understand yourself. You do need to know what you can and what you can't do, and then build on that. Now, in both Jennifer and Vidusha's instances or cases, we've noticed that when you are successful in what you do, you'll find that success, or everyone wants to be associated with success, right? But here is my thought or my concern, and that is, I think the words of Mahatma Gandhi, if I'm not mistaken, where he says, first they ignore you, right? Then they laugh at you, then they fight you, and then you win. The naysayers that we have, and every one of us have gone through this, right? And this,
absolutely,
that's everywhere. Jennifer, with all of that positive thinking, or all of that right-minded thinking, the right attitude, that you know what you want to achieve, you agree this is what you can do, and this is what I will go ahead and do it and become good at it. But with all of that, I'm sure you've come across your share of naysayers. How did you handle them? How did you manage them? How did you overcome that?
brilliant question. And yes, the one thing that I have recognized is this, that if when anything new is going to start off, and if you are the person who's going to be the guy or the girl who's going to stand up and say, I'm going to actually go with this and I'm going to really help other people to get it. I mean, I work on the levels of helping people to become consciously aware of the choices that they can make to create a grander future. Now, if I was talking about this openly to somebody right now, or I did it in the past, people would think that I'm a bit wacko, like, oh, what the hell are you talking about? Talking about energy, bringing energy into the workplace. I mean, energy for them was like, let me stand up and jump around and do some exercise. No, I was talking of a different kind of energy. And they would say, are you out of your mind? I mean, I've had people, Jesus, have I had people who've actually said, is this really going to make you money? are you sure you want to do this? And I thought to myself, I had doubts, like, oh my God, everyone is saying that. But then I also knew that the doubts that I was having were not my doubts about my own abilities and my competence to actually take it forward, but it was their doubt that was coming into my head that was stopping me from moving forward. So then it's not about being bullheaded. It's not about this is the right way, the perfect way, and I'm going to do it. No, it was about me taking what it is that I knew to be true, that I saw people who actually chose to work with that, to see the results that they were getting. And then I looked at approaching my approach to that, to those various naysayers, to be a different one. I'm not here to hammer something to someone's head if you're not willing to receive it. However, if I was to change my approach to help someone to become grander than what they are, wouldn't they look at it? So I had to learn how to not just force my point of view, because I'm not there to do that. Either you choose to be more than what you are, and if you're not choosing that, that's okay too. But I am not here to force anyone to do anything. But will I hold what it is that I do as really something that's going to be a contribution? And one thing that I've noticed is when you're doing anything new, when people started flying aircrafts, you think everyone jumped to the freaking aircraft and took off? Hell no. Okay. When we were putting fiber optics in Pakistan, do you think everyone said, oh my God, fiber optics, yeah, let's go and just start putting it? We had a lot of resistance, didn't we? Right, Mohammed? Okay. So anything new that is showing up requires people to engage with you. And it's our own ability to be able to suss out what is it that they're willing to receive. Our job is not to make us wrong that we are bringing something new, but our job is to look at how it is that people are going to be enthused to be part of it. Like what we're doing right now, Anton, Vidusha, and myself. We are bringing in a change of how training can be framed. We are not here to force our point of view on you. We're here to actually make a difference by the conversations that we're having with you. It's not a force, it's an education. It's a different way of approaching situations. And are we going to get 150 people come and join us? I would love that, wouldn't we? But there will be some who will come and play and some who will think that we are wacko. And I'm okay with that. Because I'd rather have 10 or 5 people or companies really wanting to make a change. And we can actually present them the range of what it is that they could change. Does that answer your question?
Can I?
It does. It does answer your question, and I know Vidusha is gonna jump into this. But Vidusha, can you also tell me? And I always have an also for you, by the way. I'm sorry. I'm pretty confident that
that's what's fun. That's what's fun. We're not going with status quo. We're here to ruffle up the feathers, to create more, open up our mind,
correct.
Become a parachute.
I'm just throwing in more feathers for him to ruffle. It's just that I know you would have gone through a similar experience in terms of having naysayers, and you would have approached it. But what I want you to also think about and sort of tell us is there a functionality to the naysayers? In the sense, do they serve as some kind of a contrast or a safety net? Or should we just completely disregard them and say, you know what, hell with it, I don't care? I'm asking just for clarification. There you go. That's my feathers for you to ruffle now.
All right. Now, first of all, I want to kind of bring this into the equation as well. I think the biggest naysayer we have is our own mind. Before anybody else. because the moment you start doing something new, which is risky, or you perceive as risky, it's our own mind that says it. And I think we are wired that way, isn't it? I mean, human beings cannot function or evolve if we got ourselves extinct by taking risks, right? As a race, we are hardwired into thinking twice, because for millions of years, there were external risks that were bigger than us. You imagine fighting the woolly mammoths, right? I mean, if that wasn't a risk, nothing is. You're that small, the woolly mammoth is that big. And, you know, a couple of people probably would have died every time they went on the hunt. So I don't think human beings would have ever thought of risk as something fun to do. They would have been very cautious. So inside your own mind, you have this trigger that says, hey, you know what, hold back. And I think you need to acknowledge it first and foremost. Now, why are we calling them naysayers? It means that they think or perceive that what we are about to do or what we are about to embark on is something that cannot be done, right? That's why we call them naysayers. Exactly. Now, answering your question dead on, there are 4 types of naysayers, right? And if you just imagine a 2x2 quadrant, those who genuinely believe it can't be done, okay? That's one group of people. And then there are people who are just jealous that you will do it when they couldn't, right? So those are 2 others. The other equation is people who really love you, who wouldn't want to see you fail. And on the other side of the equations are people that actually want you to fail. So they come in a completely different form of naysaying, which is they actually encourage you to do it, knowing full well that you might fail. You actually have 4 types of naysayers, right? And the 4th one is the most dangerous one, because they actually urge you on, and you think they're the positive people who are cheering you on, when it's not the case. So there is a functionality that they perform. So I always talk about one of my colleagues called Sajid, right? Now, Sajid and I were complete polar opposites. I was like Jennifer, who would honestly take on things and say, let's do this. And Sajid was always the guy who actually sat back and said, hey, you know what? If you do this, you're going to screw this up in this way. Now, for the longest time, I actually butted heads with him because I honestly thought he was just gunning me. When in fact, he was wired that way. He saw risks. And they were very, very realistic risks, and they were very accurate risks. And thankfully, we were able to kind of see eye to eye, at least on a values base, and became very good friends. So I knew he wasn't saying that from a place of, I'm going to screw you up by stopping you, versus, you know, I hear you, but I see this, and what am I supposed to do if not tell you, because I consider you my brother, I consider you my friend. I don't want you to fail. And that's when I realized that having someone like that around you, especially if you're one of those people who instinctively take risks, is fantastic. It's painful for both parties concerned.
Yes, true.
Right. But it's a fantastic combination for somebody to see your blind side. And you're wise if you sat down and took a note of all of what the naysayers say and actually have contingencies for it. It's not to stop you from doing it. I think it will make you do it better. Wow. If you didn't have naysayers, chances are you will probably go and make a right royal mess out of it in your gung-ho attitude.
I've got various people that I would go and ask, you know, for, okay, I'm trying to do this, what do you think about it? And they will give me the honest opinion. And for me, it is like, tell me honestly, where do you think this is going to work or not work? Okay. And tell me, what do you see as something that I'm overlooking? Because if you have that kind of relationship with people, and you're very right, you know, when you say the different kinds of people who are going to be naysayers, hell yes. I mean, I've experienced that all the time, right? But you have this certain amount of people who you can actually truly trust to have your back, to ask this question. It's all about asking questions, you see. That's the name of the game. Ask the questions.
And if you're honest about it, most of the people who would love you, who are risk averse, would actually see the risks for you.
Exactly.
On your behalf, and they're petrified of it, and you can't blame them for it. It's a bit like my mom, and she's right to do that. It's part of her job description, right? It's part of her job description to watch out for you. Now you get annoyed by it because every time you try and do something, she's there at your back saying, but look out, watch out, try not to do this. If you do this, this might happen. And all of them honestly are true, isn't it? When we have gone through life, you'll actually look back at whatever your mother has said, and you would have been wiser to just listen to her. but then I think I wanna actually dovetail this right back to the first question you asked, right? I think there is no option if you really want to make a success out of your life. There is no option but to go through this rigmarole for yourself. You don't get confident or wise by playing it safe.
Hell no.
You only get there by making the mistakes yourself. And no matter how much of mistakes other people would have told you and cautioned you against, if you don't make the same mistakes for yourself and actually learn from it, you don't necessarily know it. You know of it. There is a difference between knowing something and knowing of it.
True.
You can know of a dog, but you must have a pet to experience it. You can't actually watch it in a movie and say, you know what, I know about dogs. You don't know anything about dogs until you've had one and the fellow dies on you.
And it's painful.
And then you know what having a dog is.
Exactly.
Until then, you don't know. You know only of dogs.
True. I'm reminded of this amazing situation where I think Edison was asked by a reporter, you've actually failed 10,000 times. What do you have to say about it? And Edison says, it's strange that you say that I failed. I never looked at it as a failure. I just learned 10,000 ways of not doing something that didn't work.
Absolutely.
I think it's so brilliant. Again, it's about perception.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Sorry, thank you for that, Jennifer. And I think exactly what Vidusha said. So we're kind of coming back, and I am mindful of the time, but it's just coming back to that particular point that Vidusha brought in. I think it kind of drives us back to inculcating a discipline within ourselves, right? And that's how you actually end up adding value, right? We started out with how do we show up? And now we're asking, what are we waiting for? But at the end of the day, it comes back to us. So I guess just to round things up, Jennifer, from your perspective, and then I'll come back to you, Vidusha, is that in terms of self-discipline, why is it important? Or rather, can I just throw it back and say, how has that affected your corporate journey, Jennifer?
The discipline part?
Yep, the self-discipline bit.
It was about, first and foremost, the way that I looked at this disciplining was, do I trust myself? I had to do it for me first, okay? I had to discipline me first. It was not about what other people expected of me. So if I was going to discipline me, what would that look like, okay? What were the things that I would be doing on a daily basis? What really brought me joy that I could employ as my daily practice? What is it that motivates me? When do I get motivated by doing this? When can I pick up the telephone and actually talk to people? So it would be a culmination of speaking to people, connecting with people, creating on the basis of what people had as expectations from a business perspective. But then I would actually choose when I would do it. Okay, so I'm not an early morning person at all. I mean, I work till 5 o'clock in the morning and then go to sleep. That's how I operate. But I'm wired that way. Okay, but it is about having whatever it is that you need to have to do, and do it at a time that you are at full pelt, ready to deliver. Okay, for example, I would write emails and send things out because I would love to do that before I actually went to sleep. So when people come in the morning, they receive the email. It's like, wow, okay, cool. Wow, what time was the sent, you know? So actually disciplining myself as to what were the main areas, which I still do today, what needs my attention today, right away, is the first question that I ask. Okay, because it would be different things that I have to do, but I would do it in the preference of what requires my attention right away. So I would ask those kind of questions. Discipline is necessary because to be able to move forward, you've got to keep chugging at the wheels. Okay, how you chug at the wheels has to be your sense of what is enjoyable for you and get the work done too, because you're doing the work, not someone else. You are doing it. So is it fun for you? And if it's not fun for you, can you make it fun? Is the question. Because discipline and fun must go hand in hand. That's how I operate. I will go beyond the point of doing stuff for somebody or anybody and for myself to the point of really enjoying it to such an extent that it does not seem like work for me anymore. Because if I'm slogging, that means there's no fun. For me, fun and joy is very important. Otherwise, I can't function. So I make everything, my discipline practice has to be fun. So I inculcate fun into my discipline, and then it doesn't seem like hard work. It seems like fun. So that's how I do it. Like talking for you, Vidusha, probably is something that's fun and does not require anything. Speaking to people, helping people to shift and change, transforming people as to how they operate, that's fun for me. And because it's fun for me, it doesn't seem like hard work. So a question over here to everyone listening, what's fun for you that you're refusing, that if you could be choosing more of, would truly change the way that you show up in the work that you do?
No, I'm gonna start there and actually say something quite, it's not a play on words, but I've always kind of worked on this because again, I think my mom really did have, my mom and dad are complete polar opposites, right? I swear, I'm messed up because of it.
No,
no. It's
both
not their
polar
fault.
opposites that actually make things better.
It's their fault. They messed me up from childhood because I cannot think of two more completely different people than my mom and dad. My mom would be absolutely passionate. She'll throw at, you know, she will throw herself at things and, you know, all the rest of it. My dad would sit by the side and watch things unfold and interject only if it's required. My mom will talk a lot. My dad will be silent. Later on, I found out that's because of my mom.
He's a wise man. Shut up.
Exactly. He knew full on who the boss was, so he just shut up. Only spoken to. That was it. He was the kind of person who took life as it came along. He never planned for anything in his life. My mother planned everything, including the holidays. She would make a checklist of what to take, and when we came off from the hotel, we should take the checklist and actually checklist it off. The only thing they had in common were their values. They were both dead straight people. They were both very honest people. They were both very hardworking people. And discipline was something that they shared. And they couldn't quite understand how I was such a lucid child, right? And my dad didn't say anything much because he didn't anyway. But my mom would go on this on a tangent on a daily basis. You're indisciplined, look at you, da, 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 da. And I couldn't get this, right? Because as far as I was concerned, I was disciplined. I mean, I studied. It's not that I didn't study, but I studied with Michael Jackson blaring, you know, on the headphones. And my mother would refuse to believe that I'm studying. Because her version of studying is actually sitting down and actually, you know, being serious about it. I would actually do the gardening. I honestly would, right? I would help my mother with chores and all the rest of it, but I'll be dancing around whilst I'm doing it. And I think there is a distinction here. And then later on, when I actually came to work, I realized that there was a lot of things I just didn't like doing. And because of that, my performance was suffering because I did the ones that I liked doing passionately. And I avoided the things I didn't want to do because somebody else will either do it, or if I could wiggle my way out of it, I would, like I did from math. And I really, that's the one kind of wish I always have now. I wish I learned my math better, right? Because I dodged it. I knew I could pass math with little effort, and that's all the effort I put in. Nothing more, nothing less. As long as I passed math, I was fine, because after that, I was not going to do math. Little did I know that I will need math for the rest of my life in some form or fashion, right? So I told myself, having kind of, when I went to do my higher studies and math reappearing all over again, I told myself, hey, you know what? I have two choices in this. I can either detest this, and that again is only in my own mind, or I could kind of make do with it. I don't have to love it, but I don't have to hate it either. There is middle ground there to be found. So when people say, do what you love, I also throw at them, love what you do. They're not the same thing. You come from you come from two completely different places there, right? But here's the thing. I think you should start honestly by asking yourself, what is it that you want to achieve? And if you have to do something that you just detest in order to get there, to me, that is the truest test of discipline. And it is good for you if you put yourself through that motion, because you realize at some point that it isn't that bad as you made it out to be. I avoided doing my MBA for 30 years because of statistics and financial management. All right. I avoided it. And I told myself, never again. I'm not doing financial management ever again. But then, and I kid you not, I'm being absolutely bone honest here. I've never graduated, right? I've done my degree, I finished my degree, but you know, where you wear the hat and the cloak and take a photograph and all the rest of it. So I've never graduated from anything. My first degree, I came back home because I wanted to start work. My first master's, I actually didn't, because it was in the UK and I didn't want to go back, and there was expenses, and my son was just small, and just didn't want to go. And my dad is 79 and my mom is just 70 plus. And something over a conversation, my mother turned around and said, we never got to take a photograph with you, on graduation day. And then I told myself, damn it, yeah, it's true, we never got that photograph. And where I come from, these photographs are important, it's as important.
Sentimental value.
Yes, it's very sentimental. So I got myself a second master's just so that my mom could come for graduation, right? My mom can come for graduation. And that was an MBA. Now get this, when I actually walked into class, there were lots of participants of my programs who were actually in the same class. And they thought I was the lecturer, I was coming to lecture. I'm not. I'm right at the back with you. I'm going to study as much as you, right? And they wouldn't believe me. They're like, man, this is really good. We'll have a fun class and all that. I said, no, dude, I'm here for the lecture myself. It's only when the lecturer turned up that they actually believed me. So obviously, because you train and such, there's a certain amount of regard that is given to you that is undue, I think. But nevertheless, they do give it in our part of the world. And so we sat down and started studying together, right? So all of them got higher marks than me, right? I just passed. I barely passed. But for the finance module, I knew I was in trouble unless I focused on it. And get this, I got the highest marks in the entire grade and the highest marks I've ever got for any subject, right? Simply because I told myself I'm not going to hate the subject. I'm just going to take it as it comes and do what I need to do. And I took it dead seriously. And I look back, I missed my first class honors with 1 mark because of financial management. And I hated it with all my guts. I went to my lecturers at Bleg and said, look, I'm from a third world country. My parents put all of their life savings towards my studies. Please, 1 mark, But the Brits are Brits, marks are marks, and that's it. So I missed it with 1 mark, and I've hated financial management ever since with a vengeance. But it goes to show, right? So I think discipline is about being able to understand that you do need to do certain things when it needs to be done. And it's up to you whether you enjoy that experience or not. It's a bit like, sit-ups and push-ups when you practice for a sport. I don't think anyone in their right mind goes, hey, 100 more push-ups, let's do this. I think you have to be slightly insane for that, right? To put yourself through that amount of pain on a regular basis. But that's discipline, right? So you put yourself through that pain because you know it will get you better. I think if you view discipline that way, whatever pain you're going through, you will always know that it is only temporary, and it'll let you achieve what you want to achieve. And I think that makes discipline bearable. Otherwise, I'm an utterly undisciplined person, but I can discipline myself when required.
Which is cool. Now, one little nugget that I would like to, that I've used for myself personally is that I've had extremely interesting points of views about how things have to be done. It was ingrained in me. But if I had to do anything that I was really not wanting to do, I had to get out of my point of view as to what stuck me as the wrong, I don't like. Okay, so what if everything was an interesting point of view? Everything really is just an interesting point of view. And what if you could actually get out of this point of views so that you could actually have complete simplicity at looking at anything, and you were not charged, because all our points of views don't really come from us, they come from everyone else around us too. So if everything was just an interesting point of view, how would you show up then? That has helped me to get more discipline.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Right. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Vidusha. We are mindful of the time. So on that note, we have come to the end of this session. We hope you found this session to be insightful, informative, and you were able to take away some nuggets for thought. On that note, a quick thank you once again to Jennifer Randive of Focus Direct Management Consultants based out of Dubai, and Vidusha Nathavitharana of High Five Consultancy for the time and for their insight. Next week, we are back. Well, actually, we're back the following week, which is Tuesday, the 24th, same time. And we are looking at the third workshop on this entire segment or series, which is who is in charge of your professional growth. So do stay tuned to our social media handles to find out when it's taking place. We will send an email out. So click and follow us. This particular session and the series is brought to you by Focus Direct Management Consultants and Versatile Consultants in Dubai in partnership with High Five Consultancy and Luminary Learning Solutions. So once again, thank you for your presence. Thank you for your participation. Stay safe, stay productive.